Well, hello everyone. Thanks for joining me for a discussion of the quaddie legs at Caulfield and Gosford for Saturday, May 7th. But before we get into that, just a brief comment on the little strategy that I was looking at. Talked about it a couple of weeks ago of looking for horses that have had at least 4 starts, never been unplaced, and then backing them for the place. Well, I've been looking at that over the last couple of weeks, and I'm now abandoning that, at least for the moment. It's not going well, and I've got better things to do than lose money race after race on these sorts of horses. It seemed like a good idea looking for consistent horses, but I'm rapidly coming to the conclusion that thoroughbreds are a very, very inconsistent breed of animal, and they are very much a victim of track conditions, of wind, of jockey, of trainers' methods about whether they're feeling well or not. Do they like the shape of the track? Who knows what's going through their minds? But every now and then they do come out with a great run to be followed up by several shockers, then another great run. And so therefore I'm abandoning looking for horses which are going to be consistent. So let's move on and have a look at the wagon for this week. Now let's begin by looking at the Optimised wagon wheel, and I've applied it to all of the races in the Quaddies at Gosford and Caulfield this week. And this is the spreadsheet that I was using up to about 2 weeks ago. You'll notice in here, if you wanted to put a jockey bonus in, you can take account for the heavy track if you wanted to. And it does come up with a price and whether the horse is a value bet or not. Now it's this particular spreadsheet that was used to work out all of the top picks for all but the last couple of weeks in that little bit of research that I spoke about a couple of days ago, which showed that the top picks for the wagon had returned a bit over 40% return on investment over the last nearly 6 months. But I have been tinkering with the strategy, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But let's just go through the races using the original wagon wheel, which I had optimised into this spreadsheet. So first of all, we've got main stage as being the top selection, a bit of a standout almost from Great House. In Gosford race 8, we've come up with Gravina, which is the favourite. A few points clear, 19 points for its rating, ahead of the nearest one at 13, which is Majestic Shot. In Gosford race 9, top selection is Dire Mill at $5.50. So getting some sort of reasonable price horses coming up here. And then lastly, Gosford race 10, it does come up with the favourite, which is not a value bet, but the favourite only just by a very small margin from Rainbow Connection, the top weight in the race, which is only a half a point behind it in the ratings. Moving to Caulfield race 6, it comes up with the top weight as the selection at $4.60 to beat the odds-on favourite, but only just by a half a point in the ratings. Caulfield race 7, the top selection is Wariri Falls, I think it's called, only a little bit in front of Thought of That. And the odds-on favourite, Uncle Bryn, at $1.85 is 10 points away from the top selection. Third leg of the quaddie at Caulfield is coming up with a 12-to-1 shot. Elskling, never heard of this horse before, but it comes up with a rating of 10 points. And then the last race, Milford is the favourite, and it does come up as the top selection, about 6 points in front of Flash R, which is the almost equal favourite. So that's the optimised wagon wheel, and I'll upload that to Google Sheets for you to use if you wish. But I have been tinkering around with it a little bit, or actually more than a little bit, and I've called it the revised wagon wheel. It's what I've been using over the last couple of weeks, and it's pretty much based around some statistics that I've found about tab numbers, where the higher rated tab numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4 do win more frequently than the middle and at the bottom. Yeah, it's not perfect maths, but I have got some maths in here to describe what I've done with the ratings. Now, I've already spoken about how I have allocated a lot more points to the favourite than what the wagon does. As far as the barrier ratings are concerned, I've done a linear regression on some information that came from punters.com. Was it punter.com.au, I think it's called. And I've got this little formula in here. I've divided it by 2 because I don't think the barriers actually make all that much difference at all. And so in this particular case, you can see that the lowest barrier rating, Moroni's got 4.1. It's drawn out wide at number 9. And the inside barrier, Sweet Thomas, well, it doesn't get a rating because it's not in the top 6. But the second barrier, barrier 2, Carp Fever, gets a barrier rating of 5.9. So 5.9 down to 4.1, that's, less than 2 points differential between the best and the worst barriers. As far as form is concerned, that's pretty much staying the same, apart from the fact that I don't think the form is nearly near as important as what the Wagon Wheel says, and so therefore I've taken the wagon number and divided it by 2. And then lastly, the tab number is coming out as a result of using this VLOOKUP table over here. And this has come back from the stats that I got from my brother's spreadsheet that I did speak about, as I said, a couple of weeks ago. But again, I think these numbers are too big, and so therefore I've divided them by 2. Anyway, look, this is a work in progress, but it did come up last week with 4 winners out of the 8, and I backed 2 out of 5 based on whether they were value bets or not. You'll notice that I've removed whether it's going to be a value bet, and I've removed the prices, and so from now on I'm just going to be betting the top pick based on this strategy at a flat bet, and I'm going to be putting about $10, I think, about 2% of the bank on each of these selections. So the first one we've got here is Great House, not main stage, which came up with the optimised version of the Wagon Wheel. In race 8, come up with the same horse, Gravina. In race 9 at Gosford, this time it comes up with Our Playboy, which is the favourite. In fact, if you look at these races here, Great House is equal favourite, Gravina is the favourite, and Our Playboy is the favourite. And what I've done, because of this price ranking here, pretty much comes up with horses very much up near the top of the favouritism market, because let's face it, the favourite and the second favourite pretty much win half of all the races. So, it's not such a bad thing to be up there betting on the favourites. But anyway, moving on, and the last rate comes up with the favourite again, but only just in front of Rainbow Connection. Moving to Caulfield, though, we do get a couple that are not favourite. We've got Scissor Step, which is the top selection in front of the odds-on favourite. And in the second leg of the quaddie, Imperial Lad comes up as the top pick at $11. Again, to beat Uncle Bryn. Now, you remember that it was Wairiri Falls was the top pick from the optimised Wagon Wheel. Does come in here as given a chance, but Imperial Lad is the top selection. In race 8, it does come up with the favourite, the claimant, and in race 9, also with the favourite, that stands out quite a bit at $3.80, and that is Milford. And so I'll upload this to Google Sheets also for you, and you can choose the 2, maybe perhaps use both and do some quinellas or perhaps trifectas or whatever. But anyway, look, we'll leave it at that for this week. I have been doing a little bit of research looking into practical punting. They've got a couple of systems there that they're advertising, and I'll talk a bit about that during the middle of the week, and I'll have another spreadsheet that will be available for you to use, and as I said, talk about that a little bit later on. But happy punting for tomorrow. Let's hope we can find some winners.